morning, everyone, and welcome to IssuesWatch Live with Senate President Steve Sweeney. I'm Ralph Albert Thomas, CEO and Executive Director of the NJCPA, and joining me today we have Jeff Kaserman, our Vice President of Government Relations. The NJCPA is pleased to offer a forum such as this where members can meet and listen to lawmakers who are trying to make a difference in our state and their ideas of how to innovate, create, and grow our state, as well as the opportunity to express our concerns on the issues important to CPAs and the business community. As you can see, our guest is not here yet. He's on his way. Senate President Sweeney will be here approximately between 9 and 9:05. And we anticipated that. So we're expecting him to arrive, like I say, a little bit after 9 a.m., at which time we'll get him mic'd up and begin our Q&A with the Senate President. In the meantime, Jeff and I will set the stage with a New Jersey legislative and regulatory update. Before we begin, please let me join me in welcoming our President, Sarah Crom. Sitting next to Sarah is Cal Sell, our President-elect. And I believe we have several past presidents who are joining us online. And we do have a number of people who are going to be online, streaming through YouTube on today's Issues Watch. Jeff, can you take us through some of the specifics of the recommendations that came out in the Path to Progress and talk about some of the critical things the state's economy
Yeah, sure. Well, before I get started, just wanted to remind everybody that we now have a Issues Watch podcast that runs every other Tuesday. If you're interested in listening to it, go to njcpa.org/issueswatch. So what I'm going to just briefly go over, and I'm not sure how far I'll be able to get into it because the senator could be here soon. Maybe he'll be a little bit later, and I'll be able to talk more about it. But I'm going to look at the pension and health benefits section. Pension and health benefits reform recommendations. That section in the Path to Progress report, which Ralph sat on that, the committee that put that together. And that committee was really started by the Senate President, who I'm sure will be talking more about it when he gets here. I think most people would agree that the biggest issue facing the state is the $151 billion pension and health benefits liability that it has. Without changes to those benefits, we're talking about the currently in this year, $6.6 billion was put aside for pension and health benefit payments, and in 2023 that would rise to $11 billion. So that would be 27% of the state budget. So obviously we're in very bad shape, and the only way to pay to continue those type of payments would be either raise taxes and or cut programs that are important to New Jerseyans, like the homestead rebate, aid to the poor and needy, and so on. The section of the Path to Progress report that deals with this issue has a number of recommendations. The Society just went on record this morning and publicly announced its endorsement of those recommendations. And I'm just going to run down those quickly. Regarding the pension system, the main recommendation is that the state should shift new state and local government employees and those with less than 5 years of service into a sustainable hybrid system with 401k and pension components, and preserve the current system for employees with over 5 years of service who have vested contractual pension rights. Regarding the health benefits reforms, they are shift all state and local government employees and retirees' health benefit coverage from platinum to gold, which I think is pretty fair. Require all new state and local government retirees to pay the same percentage of premium costs that they paid when they were working. Cap accrued terminal leave payouts for state and local retirees at $7,500 or the amount currently earned and make those payments based on average career salary. Require state and local governments to pay the first $15,000 of remaining earned sick leave immediately or allocated on a pre-tax basis to retiree health care premiums for qualifying employees and pay the remaining amount over 5 years. Require an ongoing third-party audit of health care claims, and require families with multiple state or local government employers to select one health care plan from one employer. So, you know, those are, I think, all pretty good recommendations. We endorse them. I imagine that most of the business groups in New Jersey, even if they haven't publicly come out for them yet, they're all supportive of those concepts. So what's the political situation with these recommendations? Because as you know, public policy decisions are never made in a vacuum. There are always political considerations, political machinations going on behind the scenes. So the way I see it, and I think most political insiders would agree, is Senator Sweeney, Senate President Sweeney, has for years been at odds with the public unions over pension and health benefit reforms. And that's the way it's been for years. He's been at odds. Last year in 2017, the New Jersey Teachers Union spent $5 million trying to defeat Steve Sweeney in his own legislative district. Since then, they've been at war. Not just at odds, but really at war. So as the one who organized the whole Path to Progress report and who's been fighting for this for years, it's safe to say that the Senate President supports reform in this area. Now, on the other hand, the governor has been pretty clear that he would not sign off on most of the reforms that are in this report. And that only makes sense because he received a lot of political support from the public worker unions during his campaign. He's also more philosophically in line with their goals. He generally has a progressive agenda, which includes support for the unions. The Assembly Speaker, Craig Coughlin, seems to be in the middle of those two. Now, we have to remember that there will be no pension or benefits reform unless the governor consents to it, because he has to sign any bill. So he's in a very powerful role. And so bearing that in mind, it doesn't look too good. Prognosis is not too good. However, I can think of two scenarios in which the governor would support some sort of reform, even if it's not as much reform as we would like. The first is there may be something that's very important to him, and Senator Sweeney and the legislature can just not move it. And so the governor might be forced to engage in some horse trading, and he might therefore allow or support some pension and benefits reform. The other scenario, which I think is pretty interesting, is, as I mentioned, in 2023, we're looking at $11 billion of a state budget, which is, by then, will probably be $40 billion. It's a huge chunk of money, and that's what he would have to appropriate to pay for these benefits. The only way he's going to be able to do that if Senator Sweeney blocks any tax hikes, which he's sort of pledged to do, and which I think he will do. The only way he could then come up with the money would be by making draconian cuts to programs that benefit a lot of his other constituents. Lower income New Jerseyans, some middle class New Jerseyans, homestead rebates, housing assistance, so on and so forth. And so if the governor tries to do that, he's then going to run into trouble with these other core supporters of his. So I think there's a good chance that that is what eventually will happen. And so he would probably be forced to sign on to some sort of reforms. But you never know anything in politics. And So my prognosis is that for the short term, we're not going to see anything happen. Over the long term, we may. I think the reforms in the Path to Progress report in this area I personally think they're great. Obviously, the society does because we endorse them. I think they're fair and reasonable. I mean, for example, they don't say that we're going to switch everything over to a 401k plan. Rather, they allow a hybrid system of 401k and pension. So that's the story with the pension and benefit reforms, and I think the senator will be addressing that.
Jeff, before you
Sure.
go on, you mentioned about the society endorser. This morning, the NJCPA endorsed the pension segment and healthcare benefits recommendations in there. The statement went out this morning, approximately about 8 o'clock on that issue. As Jeff mentioned, the society was a member of the Fiscal Policy and Working Group, and I represented the society. We also had two other CPAs who were on there. Jerry McGinnis, who is an executive in residence at the William G. Rower Business School at Rowan University. Jerry is also a retired KPMG partner and was the office managing partner for the Philadelphia office. And Jerry actually sat on the subcommittee for the pension and healthcare benefits. And then Kurt Strummel, who's president of HRS Financial Services out of South Jersey. So we were well represented in terms of having CPAs on the working group, and I think it was because we have been pitching in the society that if you really want to know what impact is happening on businesses and individuals in the state, what better place to go than the CPAs, because they pretty much touch every constituency or business here in the state. And so that has really helped, I think, in terms of our involvement with the Senate President and his staff and providing, and I know we've inundated you with surveys, but they've been short surveys, but they've been very meaningful in terms of the information that has come back and that we provided and shared with the lawmakers in Trenton and also the administration in that regard.
Thanks, Ralph. So that encapsulates a brief summary of the pension and health benefits section that we endorsed today. There's actually a lot more pages on it if you want to look at the report, which is online. I want to briefly now look at the tax recommendations in that report. And Ralph sat on the subcommittee of the Economic Growth and Fiscal Policy Workgroup that was formed by Senator Sweeney. And then, if we have time, I want to look at one particular proposal that our members are strongly in support of. So, and the survey that we did of our members after this report came out, and we listed for them the various tax reform proposals that were in the report, and the one that they felt that was most important to the state in generating economic growth was providing more assistance to small businesses. Now, I'm just going to bear that in mind because we're going to come back to that particular idea. So here are the main recommendations. Permit pass-through entities to avoid SALT caps by allowing their owners to pay taxes at the entity level. Undertake a comprehensive analysis of New Jersey's sales tax exemptions to simplify the tax code. Revise New Jersey's property tax programs to ensure that property tax relief is provided equitably and is allocated to reduce property tax payments for New Jersey owner-occupied homeowners to the greatest extent possible. Establish a permanent version of the committee that Ralph sat on, a permanent work group. Permit a gross income tax deduction for charitable donations to New Jersey-based charitable organizations. And this is what I mentioned before. Focus additional tax incentives towards small businesses to support more entrepreneurs with facilities located in New Jersey. And here's a rather complicated one. Permit a revenue-neutral county or multi-county regional 1% sales tax option paid partly by out-of-staters to be used to potentially cut property taxes by more than $1 billion if all counties participate. Somebody figures out what that means and let me know later. Oh, yeah. The senator is here. Okay, great. Yeah.
So
great.
We're going to get him mic'd up, if he isn't already mic'd up, and bring him forward. And I'd also like to bring forward John Mortensen from Witham. Witham is our host today for today's show. So
thank you for
having me. Hey, Ralph.
Good morning, Senator.
Good morning, my friend.
Good to see you.
You too.
Okay.
So good morning, everyone. My name is John Mortensen. I am the partner in charge of Witham's East Brunswick office here today. And we are happy and pleased to host this IssuesWatch breakfast meeting this morning. For those of you who don't know Witham, we are a nationally ranked CPA firm providing audit, tax, and advisory to local and individuals and multinational companies. In addition to our office here in East Brunswick, we have offices in Princeton, in Red Bank, in Whippany, and in Paramus. Our guest today is Senate President Steve Sweeney. After the governor, he is the most influential lawmaker in New Jersey. The senator has served in the Senate President position since 2010. He is also the Vice President of the International Association of Iron Workers. Senator Sweeney has been a great friend to the CPA profession. He's responsible for assembling the Economic and Fiscal Policy Workgroup, which recently released the Path to Progress report. The goals of the report are to get New Jersey on a path to fiscal stability and to provide taxpayer relief. The senator appreciates the unique insights of the CPAs and what they bring to the public policy arena because of their work in the trenches with hundreds of thousands of businesses and taxpayers. And he has appointed 3 CPAs to the work group, including our own Ralph Thomas. The Path to Progress report makes many recommendations that have been praised by business leaders from across the state. In fact, the New Jersey Society recently endorsed the recommendations made in the report that addresses the state's pensions and health care benefits crisis. Please join me in welcoming Senate President Steve Sweeney to our forum this morning.
Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Now, a few ground rules because I know we want to maximize the senator's time here. If you have a question, ask a question, but please refrain from political statements. And if you want to do one, write it out, and we'll get it to the senator and his staff later. But we've got him on a time schedule. And I would encourage those of you who are here in person and those who are online to tweet and post. But if you are here and you get a call from an anxious client, just step out into the hall and take that call, okay, if you will. All right, Senator, welcome. It's indeed a pleasure to have you here with us today and to talk about an initiative that you and many of the lawmakers that have been on this bipartisan project have really put a lot of effort in.
Oh, I appreciate the opportunity to be here, Ralph, because, we're dealing with numbers. That's what you guys do every day of the week. And, some people can get very emotional about things and angry about things, but there's just realities in life. And in New Jersey, we're facing some very, very serious problems that can't wait for 5 or 6 years because the state, although it can't go bankrupt, the pension systems can. And the amount of money that we would be forced to put up, to keep the pensions going are billions of dollars that we don't have. Look, it's just, again, we talk about realities. Back in January, I asked Steve Warho, Republican Senator, Paul Sarlo, Democrat Senator, convene a group of experts just to start talking and looking at what New Jersey's actually facing. Because I knew we were in trouble. We've been in trouble for a while. And we got the best and brightest in the state of New Jersey. We have CPAs, we have economists, we have government experts. Really, and if you look at the panel, if you go to Path to Progress to see who served on this panel, it's really a very, very impressive group of people. And we asked them, look, we want the truth. Don't hold back. Long story short, they came up with 200 recommendations. We broke it down into 5 subcommittees. They broke down to 58 recommendations down to the final 32 that we have. And the one thing we recognize is our pension and healthcare system is not sustainable anymore. Our revenue growth in the state of New Jersey is going to be completely consumed by pension and health care costs this year. There will not be one penny for anything else. And raising taxes in this state is not the answer. This is a state that has a tax problem. We have plenty of money if it was managed properly and spent properly. We discuss this all the time. So, when you look at the pensions, and as we looked at it, it took us 6 years to get the $3.2 billion pension payment that we made this year. We have 4 years to get it up to 6.7. We can't get there. And then we looked at our health care program, and what was shocking to me. You hear about platinum, you hear about gold, platinum, and platinum plus. New Jersey pays 97% of all health care dollars. It's not gold, it's not platinum. It's platinum, platinum plus. And as Steve Warhill reminds us on a regular basis, under Obamacare, there's a tax for platinum healthcare programs. Anything above gold, you're going to pay a 40% tax. So if we don't do something, we're going to increase our healthcare costs by 40% by maintaining a program that we can't afford to start with. So they're numbers. I'm in a room full of people that understand numbers. They don't add up. And people say, well, do the sales tax, raise millionaires tax. We're chasing people out of this state. I've talked to bankers that, there's been numbers thrown around, but over the last, I think, 8 years, Ralph, we netted $20 billion in wealth out. $20 billion in wealth out. And as part of the budget this year, I agreed to a $5 million tax on people making more than $5 million. And it was part of a compromise, and I didn't want to do it because they're the people who are going to leave. Pennsylvania's got 3% tax, right? If you make $5 million or more, you could go to Pennsylvania, pay 3%, or you go to Florida and pay 0, right? And normally people that own businesses like to live near their businesses, which means those businesses leave with it. And we have to reverse this trend. The governor talks about, wanting to step up our focus on venture capital, and I agree with him. But the reason why we're dropping isn't because we don't have good programs. The reason why we're dropping is we have the 5th highest tax burden in the nation. And if we don't start reversing this and going in a different direction, and we don't do it now, this state is in serious financial trouble that will continue to drop. Like I said, I've been trying to fix the pensions in this state since 2005, when the problems were small. And unfortunately, no one, we every year we come up with a budget solution and we dodge the bullet for that year, and it's like, thank God we can get on to next year. Well, when you have a problem and you don't fix it, when you have a structural problem and you don't fix it, it doesn't go away, it gets worse. It really gets worse. So, we're looking at $15 billion in the hole in our pension system.
Like 151
yeah.
billion.
I got the numbers wrong. $151 billion. We can't fix it. And raising taxes won't fix it either because there's structural problems. If we go back to 1997, Governor Whitman bonded the pension payment, a $2.8 billion payment that was non-recallable debt, backloaded, so it was heavy payments in the back. By 2027, a $2.8 billion loan, we're going to pay back almost $11 billion. This year's budget, we put $463 million in it. That was bad, but that was bad, but as a trade-off with some of the public sector unions, they said, well, our pension's overfunded. Oh, we were paying 7.5% interest too. That's another one. Think about it. We're paying 7.5% when interest rates were, when you could have got it for 1.5% if you were government, right? If you had a good bond rating, but we don't have a good bond rating because of all these other issues. And the public sector reduced their contribution by 40% to the pension, from 5.5 to 3.5, because they said we're overfunded, you have to improve the pensions. Well, after they did that, they lowered the retirement age by 5 years. Now you realize if you retire 5 years younger, there's a 99% chance that you're going to collect that money. In fact, the mortality rates we work with right now on pensions is the age is 83, and we know it has to go up to 87. You know what I mean, Ralph?
Yeah.
And nationally, they're really struggling with that because that's going to put our pension systems even in a worse place. And in 2001, they gave everyone, all retirees and all future workers, a 9% increase in the pension with no money. So how did we get here? By politicians working and screwing around with the pension system. And it created such a hole that we can't come back from it without really a whole new structure. Now, right now, we're advancing. We have actuaries looking at, Ralph, we'll see if this works. The first 40,000 would be pensionable, and anything above that would be cash balance. You know, there was a Healy-Byrne report. The Healy-Byrne report was very well done. The problem is the recommendations we couldn't afford, because if we froze everyone today and put everyone into a new system, it would cost us $1.4 billion that we don't have. We don't have any revenue. Our budget's $37.5 billion now. Every dollar's been committed, and we're talking about, well, we want to spend more money on transit. We want to spend more money on schools. We want to spend more money on pre-K. They're all noble causes, but where's it come from? And again, we can't tax anymore, and I can tell you, I'm not raising taxes. I'm done. We're either going to fix this, or we'll just deal with the realities of the dollars that we have, like business owners do. You know what I mean, Ralph?
Yeah.
We're crushing ourselves.
So that being said, Senator, with the 32 recommendations that
Yeah.
ultimately ended up in the report, where do you start? I know that there's some things that are more long-term, but how do we sort of energize the state in some way, shape, or form with some of these recommendations? I'd like to understand what your thoughts on it now that you've had an opportunity to look at them as to where you want to go.
Well, we've been meeting, and I haven't done it publicly, but privately with mayors and freeholders and county officials around the state. We've been meeting with business groups, meeting here today. I'm hoping that you're going to help me. I need to engage the public on this. I think a lot of people have already given up, Ralph. Like I hear people say all the time, as soon as, and I'm sure you hear this too, as soon as my kids get out of school, I'm out of here.
Okay.
We hear it way too much. And we got to reverse that trend. Doing the estate tax repeal, that helped.
Yeah. And I remember when you had the roundtables on the estate tax, and I was sitting in that fortunate seat behind the folks from AARP and the Office of the Aging, and they all, when you asked me to speak on it, they all looked and said, he's going to talk about, the estate tax and whatnot. Yeah. And I think my comment was, we need to do something to level the playing field for all tax practitioners.
Yes.
And I think I remember also the comment, and I saw you perk up when I talked about the fiduciary responsibility that our members have when they're counseling them on wealth management and estate planning, that one of the recommendations is that they consider leaving New Jersey.
And that's what we want to stop, especially since you're the ones that are located here.
Right.
And you're advising people with money after they've worked, after their kids are grown, to leave New Jersey and take their wealth with them. Ralph, that's why the retirement income tax was such an important piece, to raise that up, because we tax retirement income. In a couple more years, we'll have exempted retirement income up to $100,000 if you're married. That is a big thing that we work together on. So we do listen.
Yeah.
But the point is engaging the public. You guys, this is an organization engaging their clients, that there is a solution, but people, it's like the old Network movie. When the anchor gets up, I'm mad as hell, I'm not going to take it anymore. I need to get the public's anger focused on the fact that there is no solutions coming out of Trenton. I tell people, you don't like my ideas? Where's yours? Really, we can't just sit here sitting still watching it. So I'm going to start doing town halls pretty soon, Ralph. I'm going to be getting out there and getting as much attention, getting it out on social media, just trying to tie in to the public, because elected officials respond to taxpayers. The number one issue in this state, year after year, is property taxes.
Right.
A new pension healthcare system could saves the state $1 billion. It's not the final solution, but it saves local governments and county governments $2 billion. That we would require them that every penny of it has to go. You can't spend it. You would have to cut taxes. Now that would be a good start to reduce the local burden by a couple billion. But realize when they're taxing the local governments, or where 70% of the taxing takes place in New Jersey, you know that we're not the big one, they are. That it begins the progress. You know, Ralph, there's a recommendation in there that we eliminate K4, K6, K8 school districts. What we found out, and it's not for savings as much as education. If you have a child that you're going to send to a regional high school, what you find out is the 3 or 4 or 5 school districts that are all going to that high school all are teaching different things. There's no coordination of curriculum, none. So when you get to high school, when the kids get to high school, some kids are here and some kids are here. So what they do is they bring everyone down. That's what they do today. We have great public schools, but we can be better. And the nice thing is, there is a savings, because instead of a superintendent and an administration at that K-4, K6, or K8 district, all you're going to have is a principal in a building. That administration will be functioned through the high school, which, oh, by the way, you already have.
Right.
You know what I mean, Ralph? So you're going to improve education, and everyone says, if you do that, we're going to tear kids from schools. No, you're not. Like, I live in Gloucester County. East Greenwich Elementary is still going to be there. It'll be called Kingsway Elementary, but the kids in East Greenwich will go to school in East Greenwich. They're just not going to have that administration, but their curriculum, their schedule. You know, these regional school districts don't even coordinate, the sending districts don't even coordinate schedules. They can't get schedules coordinated, let alone curriculum coordinated. But we think enough and we trust enough to send our kids to, in my case, my district, Kingsway High School. Kingsway is a phenomenal school. So we trust our kids when they're getting ready to go to high school that school district, it's not East Greenwich, it's Kingsway Regional, is going to look out for my kid. Well, why can't we trust them to look out for their education from K to 12? And there's savings. There's a lot of savings, because we'll go from 600 school districts to 320. You know, that is very good for the state of New Jersey. It's good for our bond rating. It's good for everything, because people see we're making progress.
I think the senator made a very good point about hearing from constituents.
Yeah.
For those of you, everybody hopefully knows that one of our members did an open letter to the governor on the pass-through entity.
Yeah.
And it's getting traction in the legislature. And so we're hopeful that will move through to help offset what was happening on the federal level in that regard. One of the big discussions has been cannabis.
Yes.
And the fact that provides a new revenue stream and whatnot. Do you expect that and the legalization of what they've referred to now as adult use versus recreational use, do you envision that we'll get legislation passed on that and a new revenue stream created? And then let me also add to that, the discussion that has been taking place on the various taxes on that revenue has been very interesting.
Well, Ralph, you know, again, if you tax too much, you're going to drive people to the black market. You know, and for us, we're trying to do adult use through the legislative process. I think Michigan just voted through a constitutional amendment to legalize marijuana. That's the toughest way to go about it. You know, we're actually taking the toughest road by trying to legislate it, because you have a lot of emotions, a lot of feelings towards it when you do it. If you put it to the vote, if you put it up to the people to vote for it, it'll pass overwhelmingly. In fact, probably 68% of the people in New Jersey would vote for it. What we have to do, Ralph, but the reason why we don't really want to go that way is because once you do something through constitutional amendment, every time you see that you have to correct something, you have to do it through constitutional amendment. And, you know, and that's too slow. It's not nimble enough. The people in Colorado told us, when I went out there, they said, if you have any chance at all of passing it legislatively, do it legislatively. Well, now that people think there's another industry that's coming. Oh, and by the way, we project 43,000 direct jobs from the cannabis industry. In Colorado, there's 29,000. And you look at, we're in the middle of everything. And, we have 9 million people in this state. So we expect a large bump in employment. We were talking about, Amazon, they were talking about giving them $7 billion to come to New Jersey for 50,000 jobs. If we legalize marijuana, we won't give that $1 subsidy, and we'll create 43,000. Ralph, so, but the biggest problem is everyone wants a piece of it. And it's like sports betting. I'll give you an example, sports betting. We agreed to keep sports betting at 8.5%. If you went to a casino, and if you do it online, or a racetrack, if you do it online, it's 13%. Because we're trying to drive foot traffic into the casinos and the racetracks, and it's working. Well, Pennsylvania's talking about taxing it at 35%. New York's talking about 50%. No one's going to bet in New York or Pennsylvania. You know what I'm saying, Ralph? Because the rule is the same. The less you tax, the more you attract. I mean, I really do believe that. So with marijuana, I've said it, I'm not going above 12%. That's as high as I'll go. The towns want 5%. It's not, no, we're not doing that because, again, you put too much of a tax on something where a person decides to do it legally or not legally.
It'll go underground. Yeah,
they go underground. And when people say decriminalize it, if you decriminalize it without legalizing it, you're just supporting it an underground operation. If there's no penalty. So we're not going to decriminalize. There's a lot of social justice pieces. People have their automatically can get their arrest records suspended, expunged through a process will be created through the courts, where you'll be able to go online without an attorney, fill it out, fill all your information out, and they would expunge it for minor possessions of marijuana, because we have a lot of people that have that on their record. But I think marijuana, and the other part is, it's not going to happen immediately. Even if we say legalize marijuana by the end of this year, you need at least 6 months, if not a year, of time to grow product, because we have a medical component that's expanding and is actually, and the medical piece, we're phasing the tax out on the medical piece, because if we're really going to classify it as medicine, we don't tax medicine. So we'll be reducing that tax there. So as we're raising the other tax, but I would say adult use marijuana is at least, if we did it by the end of the year, you're talking no stores really opening up until this time next year, just because of product. Ralph, right. You need to be able to grow product. We create a commission. The legislature came up with a commission, like the Casino Control Commission, that would govern, how we build this industry, because if we try to address every single area through the legislature, it'll never get done.
Right. And speaking of things that are on the table, minimum wage.
Yes.
There's been a lot of conversation about minimum wage, trying to take it to $15 an hour, and I know the governor has said, I want to do that, no exceptions. And the business community's reaction has been, we need exceptions.
I agree. Ralph, I'm the prime sponsor of the minimum wage the last 2 times they raised it. And if we're going to 15, that's not just going up $1. You're talking about a large jump, even if it's over a period of time. And there's certain industries that I don't think 14 to 18-year-old kids necessarily need to make $15. I don't. They would go up to $10.10. That would be the opening wage from the $8.60 or whatever it is now. There needs to be a training wage. We got to figure out how long that training wage is. And there are some industries that, yes, they do need to be exempt. And what I worry about, Ralph, is the bagel shop owner with 3 employees. And I also worry about the employers that are providing health care right now or retirement support, that, like Amazon, everyone praised Amazon. Yeah, they raised it to $15 and then took benefits away from them to pay for it. So it wasn't a net gain. In fact, the employees said it was a net loss. So, I'm not going to praise Amazon for going to $15 and then taking benefits away from them to pay for it. What I'm saying is there is also discussion about total compensation. You know what I mean, Ralph? Like, I'm not saying that's where we're going yet, but I'm saying that's on the table to look at, because it's easy to say I'm going to raise something to $15 and just go with it. But the impact to small business, especially small businesses, 9 out of 10 small businesses fail today. You know, I could put that little coffee shop owner out of business. Starbucks can handle it. You know, the little coffee shop person is not going to be able to handle it. The bagel shop person is not going to handle it. The small business entrepreneurs that, 90% of business is small business,
Right.
We're going to chase them out of here.
Right.
You know?
And I know we provided to your staff some information what happened out in Seattle, Washington when they went.
We read it.
To $11, and unemployment went up. Employers reacted to it by reducing people's hours, laying people off, and then other companies said, "Well, I guess we'll go the technology route."
Ralph, I have a couple friends of mine that own grocery stores, and they love sending me videos of the automation that's taking place in their industry, where there won't be anybody behind the the bakery counter anymore. You press how you want 12 rolls, press a button, 12 rolls will come out. You won't have those people. The people stocking the shelves. Well, they got computers now that can do that. They got computers that can run down the aisle, look at the product, and come with another one and fill the shelves. The cashless registries that you go through now.
Well, you just go to Newark Airport, Terminal C.
I know. Yeah, but Ralph, that's why as someone, look, I've been a union person my whole life, and I believe that providing more wages for the lower scale actually strengthens the economy, because if I'm making $15 an hour, I'm not like somebody that's wealthy to I'm going to just stick it in the bank someplace. I'm spending it.
Right.
But if it's not done properly, that's why I'm not rushing this. No matter how much anybody tries to push me, I am not going to screw this up. We're not, not intentionally. I know if I go to $15 without anything, as they call it, a clean 15, I'm going to hurt the economy of the state and not help it.
Because I think, paired with that should be some sort of workforce development issue, because you want people to not just be happy at $15. You want them to enhance their skill sets and things like that. So I know that's been a lot of discussion out there about the need to pair with an increase in the minimum wage, some sort of workforce initiative to incentivize folks to enhance their skill sets.
Well, we created a thing called a stackable credit, and right now it only exists in Gloucester County. And a stackable credit is where you can go, like everyone thinks you have to go to college to go to work, and that's not necessarily true. Like if you require certain certification in your business, your manufacturing business, well, all I need to do to go to work for you is to get that. I don't need a 4-year degree. And then if I decide I want to go further, it's an on-ramp and off-ramp where you go in and out to get the amount of education you need. Ralph, we drive too many people to college. So by creating a program where you get what you need to get the job that you're looking for, that you get employed, and then if you want to advance from that, you know what I mean? It's the workforce development you're talking about.
So, we got a lot of work to do. And the question is, again, what do you see as some of the things that out of the box? Obviously, again, back looking at the report, there's some long-term issues like dealing with the educational process. Obviously, will be one. What are you thinking about that to stimulate or jet start the economy and get people excited about, one, staying here, and particularly we've been a big proponent of the emphasis of doing things for small businesses because they're already here.
Yes.
We've got 350,000 to 360,000 of them. If we could get 10% of them to hire one more person, what that could do to the economy. What do you, from your perspective, what are some of the things that you think that need to be done right away to start that process? And then what do you think the governor will he come on board with that? So,
well,
give us your
Ralph,
thoughts.
One of the big things that happened is look, it's debt, but it was debt that we needed to incur to expand vocational schools. That bond act we just passed was very important. There's 17,000 kids that get turned away from vocational school every year in New Jersey. That was the purpose of the Bond Act for me. There's 43,000 jobs. We meet with the manufacturers. You know, we created a manufacturers caucus. You know, the average manufacturer in New Jersey is 34 employees. They're not big employers. They're small employers. And they would hire more people, but they can't even fill the jobs they have right now, Ralph, because they can't get the training that they need. So expanding vocational schools and then loop in this stackable credit piece to provide more people a chance, that's one of our big initiatives that, thank God, happened. You know, the voters approved it, and problem was our debt situation is so bad that should have been $1 billion. We couldn't afford it. Yeah. You know, so, you know, it's a $500 million, but it's a recognition that we need to change things. We also need to change the message really to the business world that New Jersey is going to fix itself. They're going to get their act together, that we're not going to continue to just look to tax. Look, I did the CBT tax. It was me. I did it. And I only did it because under the president's tax change, the C corporations were the only ones that really benefited from the Trump tax cuts. But I did it on a temporary basis to give us time, because we do need revenue, to transfer and to start, you know, to get over the bridge to the other side to fix this thing. But we got 4 years to do it, now 3, because this is one of the years that we're in. Right. And we scaled it down, you know, we reduced that tax. So half the taxes we did last year are going to go away in 4 years. So we need a solution. I'm hoping the governor gets on board. Ralph, I really do hope the governor's going to get on board with the directions of trying to fix the pension systems, because we need to. And it can't wait 6 years, with all due respect to the governor. It can't wait 6 years, because one, we can't get to the payment without, what are we going to do, raise the sales tax to 8%? You know, Ralph, we're already in a very, very bad place. And if raising taxes would have fixed our problems, okay. But raising taxes has not fixed our problems. We raised the sales tax in 2006, and I wouldn't vote for it. I represent the southwest part of the state, which I have Delaware with no sales tax. There's no appliance stores in Salem County. You want to see a poor county, Salem County. Everyone goes over the bridge. You want a refrigerator, you want a washer, dryer, you're going over there. Anything of any value, you're going over there. Yeah. Do you blame them? It's zero. Ralph, guess what? You know, when I told my friends in labor, I says, I'm not voting for the sales tax. They said, well, if you don't, they said, that's going to fix our pension. The sales tax is going to fix our pension, and if you don't fix it, we're going to target you for defeat. Now I do paid family leave, I'm doing minimum wage, I'm doing all these pro-labor things, but you know, that's how divisive this stuff gets. Well, they got their penny back in 2006. They got it. The pension's not fixed because there's structural problems. And they consumed the whole penny. Back then it was only half the penny. A penny brings in $1.8 billion, right? We raised our sales tax. What did we fix? Nothing. You know what I'm saying, Ralph? At some point you have to deal with reality, and last year was really the last year you could push this down the road anymore, kicking the can, because I don't know where we would come up with $8 billion to pay pension bills each year. You know, if this pension system goes broke. Standard & Poor's did a great report on it. About a week and a half ago, because like I felt like I was yelling fire, you know, in an empty theater. You know, when you start getting people like Standard & Poor's and others saying, you're right, we got a big problem here. And you know, I would challenge anyone to try to attack the report, because the people we put in it are really the top people in the state. They're the best that New Jersey has to offer, including you.
Well, thank you. Well, thank you. We certainly appreciate the opportunity to be a part of it and everything. I guess we can open up to questions. Yeah, Don?
Yeah, we have 32 people watching online.
Okay.
Those people asked, do you see any movement towards shared services?
Oh, yeah. But
okay.
You know something?
Do I need to repeat the question? Yeah, the question is, do you see the need for shared services? And that was something that was addressed in the report as well. And it's been talked about forever and ever, that and consolidation, et cetera. So how do we get it's all, you hear the conversation, and people say, oh, yeah, that's great, but not for my for my township, not for my city. Do it somewhere else. How do we get that rolling in New Jersey?
By keeping the caps in place to keep pressure. No one's done, and I take great pride in this. When I was the freeholder director in Gloucester County, we did more shared services than any place in the state of New Jersey. Today, we still do. Ralph, and what we found was a lot of times the only way the towns would come in is when they couldn't get under the cap. If they couldn't get under the cap, well, okay, you can do. We have countywide EMS. We're the only county in the state, countywide 911 services. We go other counties. We actually do calls for other counties, right, Ralph? We countywide tax assessment, right? Tax assessment office, countywide stormwater management. We merge school districts. There's been police districts merged. We're the only county in the state that doesn't have jails. We got rid of all our jails. We were paying $28 million a year for jails. We're now paying 13. And we have prisoners. We just don't have jails.
Yes.
But Ralph, what I'm saying is, the way shared services works is we got to keep pressure on spending. You got to keep the pressure on spending down, because when they can't get under the cap, that's when they finally come over to you and do the service. Because home rule, as you said, everyone likes home rule. And even though you can save $400 or $500 a year, I'd like to, I'm married, the police chief's my buddy. Well, maybe the police chief isn't your buddy. You know what I'm saying? But your taxes are less. It's really creating more pressure. I joked, I said, the governor named two shared services ours. I said that was the wrong title to give them, because, people kill czars. They don't last. But we can. I want to force it. I have a bill I've had for 8 years that gets stuck in the assembly that says if there's studies done and you show you can save money and you decide not to at the local level, then I cut your state aid by that amount of money, because you don't need my money, obviously. And I don't mean that in a cavalier way, but if you have the ability to save dollars and you choose not to, how do you take money from me?
There should be a price.
There got to be a price. People said, well, there should be a carrot and a stick. I said, the carrot doesn't work. The stick does. And that's what's necessary to be done. Because when you're being impacted financially, then it's like, whoa, and like I said, I've gotten it passed in the Senate in the past. I'm talking to the current speaker, and we're working very well together to put the bill up. Let the governor sign it. Or maybe he won't sign it, I don't know. But start putting the pressure on shared services. I had two mayors, Ralph, that were mayors for at least 10 years, came to me one day and they said, hey, we just decided to share trash collection. We're both going to save $125,000 a year. I said to him, what do you want me to do, give you a badge? And the guy said, oh, we thought you'd be happy. I said, you got elected to do these jobs. Your job was to provide government at the best cost, right? That's our job when you take that oath, is to provide the services at the best cost, give the best value back to the taxpayers. I said, you should have done it 10 years ago. You guys have been in office for 10 years, right? Yeah. It's that easy. They're not hard choices either. And oh, by the way, once it happens, it's okay. All the fear-mongering, all the, oh my God, we're not going to be safe, the ambulances aren't going to get there. Once you do it, it goes away. Yeah. No one even knows what it was like before. My county's the only county with countywide ambulance. We recognized year in and year out as one of the best services in the state. We reduced the response times in half. We have half the ambulances running. Now, how can you reduce the response times in half and have half the ambulances? Because we didn't need them all. We didn't need all the firehouses. I got to tell you, I hate parades, Ralph. I hate parades. I go to a lot of them, and I hate them because I count the apparatus that's in the parades. Bergen County has more fire equipment
than Manhattan.
Yep. Gloucester County, with 300,000 people, has more fire equipment than the city of Philadelphia, with 1.5 million. I hate parades because when you see them trucks, that's $1 million, it's $1.5 million, it's 800,000. Just add it up, and none of it. Some of it's needed. Some of it is needed, but not all of it. Like I said, our countywide EMS, we don't have. We gave the towns. We did the buildings we didn't need. We give them back to the towns because we don't need them. Get rid of them. Sell them. You know what I'm saying, Ralph? There's so much waste here. There's not a revenue problem. There really isn't. It's a spending problem.
And how do we really get focused on that? Because that conversation has come up all the time, that we've got a spending problem. It's not a revenue problem. It's because, people want these types of services. They want their trash picked up 2 times a week when they could probably do it once a week and then live with. I know I do that in my township. We get once a week.
That's why I get.
It works perfectly.
Works for me.
Yeah, and what?
But Ralph, what happens is people like their government. They just don't like paying for it. And what we're saying is there's no need. If you look around the country, states that have lower tax rates, they're basically county-based governments. You know what I'm saying? Like, you have a sheriff's office. You have one sheriff, you have a couple deputy sheriffs. You don't have, like Gloucester County has 24 towns. You don't have 25, we had at one time 24 police chiefs. Now we've done a lot of consolidations. Gloucester County has 24 towns, we had 29 school districts. Just think about it.
Do we have any questions from the audience? Because I know you have their schedule that you need to keep. Any questions from our live audience here? Yeah? Everybody's good, comfortable, happy with what's going on? Okay. Yes?
I just have a comment. Number one, thank you for coming to this meeting. Number two, why do you think it is that other legislators aren't seeing the math the way you're seeing it?
No, there are other legislators. There are other legislators that are saying it. This is something that isn't going to be fun. Is all I can tell you. Because once you decide that you're going to shake this place up, you get shaken up yourself. I went through the most expensive legislative race in the history of the country, not New Jersey, because I refused to do something that I knew was going to be a bad decision. I refused. So they wanted to make an example out of me. Well, guess what? I won. Now what? Now I'm here. Now I'm alive, and now I'm not afraid. I wasn't afraid then, and I'm not afraid now. Look, I think that a lot of legislators know things need to be corrected. They're just not comfortable in how to correct them. And I don't get emotional with this stuff. I really don't. They're numbers. Like I said, coming into a group like this, we'll show you our numbers. We'll open our books. The only solution is a change. So when that comes to that, and Ralph saw that when we did these, when we were working in this group, the numbers are what they are. And change has to happen, or the state is going to be a state with people that are stuck here. The only reason why they haven't left here is because they can't leave here because they're underwater with their mortgages, or, I think it was 2002, the top tax bracket was paying 49% of the income tax in the state of New Jersey. We're down to 40%. We're not spending less, you know that. That means the people in the middle class and the poor people in the working poor, the middle class, they're picking up even a bigger burden because we're losing our base.
Right.
And it's not hard for people to leave now, Ralph. You know that.
Oh yeah. I hear it all the time. I remember.
Well, David Tepper is friends with him. I'm friends with David Tepper.
Right.
He was the 50th wealthiest guy in the country. When he left, he alone was $111 million in income tax a year.
I think it was almost 145.
45.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was a big number.
Little difference.
But a big number.
Yeah.
But he's the exception. But the people that own businesses that, like I said, I just hear from too many people now, Ralph, and I hear from the middle class now. When you hear from the wealthy, it's one thing. But I was at Monmouth University with Joe Krillos during an event, and there's a bunch of students in the audience, and we said, how many of you are going to leave when you graduate? Half the hands went up. Half. And the reason is affordability.
Yeah.
Now, to get to one side, back to this report for a second, we have the second most expensive higher education system in the nation. We're 48th in support. It's not hard to collect the numbers, right? I support it. I'm 48th in the country, so of course the tuition's second most expensive. What we have going on now, Ralph, Pennsylvania, New York, New Hampshire, Vermont, Rhode Island, they actually have a special out-of-state rate for New Jersey kids. So we spend all this money, because one of the biggest expenditures is education funding, and we spend all this money, and these kids go away, and when they go away, they don't come back.
Right.
You
I
know?
think their number, about 65% of them don't come back.
We're the largest exporter
of high school
kids in the nation. And part of it is it's expensive to go to school here, it's expensive to live here, and they're smart, and they're not going to, and when you can't invest in transit like we're struggling with New Jersey Transit, and as bad as New Jersey, why would I want to be there? If we weren't surrounded by Philadelphia and New York, we'd be in real trouble. You know, because all the growth is coming out of New York into New Jersey. You know that. All that growth is coming over. And we're fortunate enough to have that economy to work with. But at some point, when is enough enough?
Enough. Yeah. So the message out to our members are, contact your legislators.
Yes.
Suggest ideas. Again, I reiterate, one of our members did that and wrote an open letter to the governor, and it was on the pass-through issue, and it's getting traction. So I think, when you back to the question that was asked, why is it that they need to hear from us?
Yeah.
They need to hear from us, and they will react. That's been our action when we've had issues up, and when we've been able to get our people to write in. Action happens. So it's important as citizens of New Jersey, if you want to see a change, be part of the solution and not part of the problem by sitting on the sidelines.
And Ralph, I consider your organization, not because I'm here, a very valuable resource, because you are talking to business owners, you're talking to people, you're dealing with the public every single day, and you've been yelling for a while about New Jersey with us, and we're not ignoring you. In fact, we did take a couple of really big recommendations. The estate tax, which Governor Murphy agrees needs to stay in place, the removal of it, and the retirement income. But again, you're in the trenches.
Yeah.
Every time you tell me
our
fiduciary responsibility.
And we're probably going to run another issue up. The inheritance tax needs to be taken care of as well. That'll really make us competitive then. But I know it's going to take some time to work on that. But you'll hear from us on that.
That's good. That's good.
Well, if there are no other questions, I want to thank the Senate President
Ralph.
for being here with us today.
Buddy.
It's really been a pleasure. And we do look forward to working with you to make New Jersey more affordable and a place that people want to stay and come to.
We want your fiduciary responsibility to tell people to stay, not leave.
Okay.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you all.
Thank you.